On the Talkback Show, on the radio, or whatever audiovisual device you choose to use. Welcome to the GBC podcast, where we talk about the Packers and our hometown of Green Bay. We are the official podcast of the Lot 1 Tailgate Party, which is at Lambeau Field every home game. This is episode 119, created October 14th, 2025. I'm John. I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Along with me, Jeff in Minnesota and Neil on the East Coast. Say hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
Hello, gentlemen. Tonight I'm drinking Still Austin Cask Strength Bourbon.
It would be a great notion for the Packers to just go out and dominate throughout an entire game. But there were points of this game that it seemed to be death by 1,000 cuts, hereby tiny little scissors, West Coast IPA.
I have a Wisconsin Supper Club style old fashioned, the whiskey old fashioned sweet with sweet being a little bit of Sprite in there as well. All right, you can find us on YouTube and Twitter at Green Bay Chat and Facebook at the GBC Podcast, Green Bay Chat. And just the audio is available on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify by searching for Green Bay Chat. What are we looking at this week? Well, we're going to talk about that home victory, Week 6 against those Cincinnati Bengals. And yeah, it was a beautiful day in Green Bay. We'll talk tailgating a little bit. And up next, it's a trip to the desert in Week 7. But to get things started, you guys, the Green Bay Packers have some consistency in their wins. 27 seems to be the magic number. 27-18, the victory against the Bengals, now with a 3-1-1 record. And interestingly, the way the NFL sets things up, 3-1-1 is better than 4-2. I like it.
What I really like is that we started at 116 yards to 1 in the first quarter and 240 to 65 in the first half. If we consider all of our drives, we only had one drive that went under 40 yards. And in 3 of the first 4 drives, Cincinnati went 3 and out, and their other drive only went 17 yards. This was clearly a dominating performance throughout, right?
Well, yeah, the first half looked great, as it has been. This Packer defense has given up 102 points this season, only 22 points total in the first half. Now, that means there's a lot of second half points that we have to worry about. But 22 points in the first half in 5 games is a number I like.
This was another first half dominating performance statistically. Scoreboard, 10-zip. Yeah, we'll take it. We're ahead. But it could have easily been 10-3 because Cincinnati missed that field goal at the end. But what a field goal it was, John.
Everything was magical. That it just like there, I swear there was a breeze that kicked in just at that moment that I don't even know how to describe it.
You describe it as a missed field goal because officially it didn't count.
And Cincinnati on that last drive had twice as many yards as they did in the entire first half prior to that point, however. And I think that's where we started to get our concern, because going back to the Cleveland game, we basically shut Cleveland out until we got to the 2-minute warning. We got to a situation where Cleveland had to pass, and basically we had that same situation against Cincinnati. We allowed them to do absolutely nothing their first 4 drives. You get to the 2-minute warning, and actually it was less than that. We were down to 106 left. Obvious passing situation. You have a veteran passer, and he meticulously picked apart our defense, moved them down into what ended up being field goal range, very long field goal range as that were. But fundamentally, they were able to take advantage. That was a complete preview of what happened in the second half. Second half, Cincinnati had drives of 78, 50, 65 yards, and then their final drive where they kicked that field goal attempt at the end. But why is it that our defense had 4 great drives and then 4 drives that were decidedly not great?
That's the million-dollar question of why can't this team put together 4 quarters of football? And I was even thinking the exact same thing. It's like, oh gosh, this is Cleveland all over again. You're dominating a team, or you look like you should be dominating a team, but the important statistic, the scoreboard, isn't really there. And then coming out of the second half, you have to wonder what is happening with the adjustments that this team makes. I don't feel like Green Bay is making the adjustments that they have traditionally made at halftime in conjunction with other teams doing really well. The opening drive for Cincinnati, Neil, in that second half took over 10 minutes off the clock. Now, strangely, Green Bay still had a total time of possession better than 3 minutes of against the Bengals. That's how much they dominated the first half. But a 10-minute drive to start the second half is insane.
I think the weirdest stat related to that is that the Packers were 0 for 0 on third down attempts in that third quarter. We did have 4 first downs, but we didn't even have the opportunity to make it to third down in the entire third quarter. And we also didn't score. And it's because there weren't even 2 full drives in the third quarter. And yeah, that's all because they had that 17 play drive that took them all the way down the field,
which was almost a backbreaker. Now, fortunately, with our defense falling asleep at that point, our offense did play well in the second half. Again, fortunately, unlike at Cleveland. So our offense bailed us out to a certain extent because they kept scoring and they looked good doing it.
There's a lot of eye test in this game as well. Now, I was at the game. I had the advantage of watching the game. I didn't have the advantage of seeing a lot of replay like you guys get on the television, but seeing it live, had a good view of watching plays develop. And I like that this was a solid game for Matthew Golden because he really looked like he was in control of his role in the game there. He had some great catches. He just was in the right spot throughout the game, and I liked seeing that. Liked being able to see some holes open up for the running game. Josh Jacobs, not really any blasting attack, but it's just kind of persistent. And Jordan Morgan, I think we've seen the highlights on him, had a wonderful day at the right guard position.
Yeah, although our first half, we were still dependent on the passing game, and we were definitely doing gimmicks in that first half. Josh Jacobs had a fabulous second half, and obviously after the Cleveland line got tired, he was able to make some moves. Jacobs only 33 yards on 10 rushes in the entire first half, and we also had some fairly ineffective running from Emmanuel Wilson. Our most effective running in the first half was either from Matthew Golden or from Jordan Love, and Jordan Love made some really big plays with his legs throughout the entire game. But it really was not until the second half that our running game really got going.
Although we don't have a wide receiver one, Golden looks that part, doesn't he? I mean, he's getting open. He's making the big plays, the splash plays. He's making Jordan Love look even better than Jordan Love is already playing. And he's playing at an amazing level, but just how he's running the routes and how he and Jordan Love seem to already have this connection.
He is definitely doing what he's supposed to be doing. He knows his role. And in the NFL, we don't see trades like, trade deadline type deals like baseball does. But you talk about, well, what does this team need? And Jeff, yeah, you said a wide receiver one would be great. Well, how about Christian Watson and Jayden Reed coming back into the fold here in the next few weeks or possible few months, and then put those two on the field with Matthew Golden, and you still have Romeo Doubs and Dontavian Wicks and your tight end core. This is a good passing offense as it is. It is poised to get better.
Yeah, and just focusing on the passing offense as it actually was. Love, 19 of 26, 259 yards, 10 yards per attempt, a QBR of 82.5. And yeah, Golden's receptions, 20, 35, and 31 yards. That is somebody who is able to make things happen. And there's a really good match between Golden and Doubs. Doubs obviously being a really good possession receiver who seems to always make those big plays, combined with Golden, the lightning to the thunder of Doubs. And Wicks obviously made his plays too. And yeah, the excitement of having Christian Watson and Jayden Reed down the road with those guys is really exciting.
I would like to see even more passing. And I think there was opportunities for that in this game. There were some, shall we say, curious play calls, the sort of backwards passes. I think we can do without those. We did establish the running game and try, certainly early on. We were having success with throwing the ball and throwing it, not the dink and dunk passes, the downfield passes. And I want to see more of that. When Watson comes back, the passing game should take on a different look.
Yeah, stretch the field, yeah.
Jeff and I had a very vigorous text conversation during the game while John was happily watching the game. And one of my texts was too goddamn many swing passes. And that goes to what Jeff was saying, that it's just the number of times we threw the ball behind the line of scrimmage, and that hurt us in a number of key situations.
We are not the Chicago Bears. We need to throw the ball downfield. And whether it was blocking issues, whatever it was, those short passes were not successful. Jordan Love has had great success throwing the ball downfield, and that's where we need to focus.
We talk about not just throwing the ball downfield, but how many targets he ends up with. In this game, there's only 7 different receivers that are targeted, which seems is kind of like a low number. But conversely, what's interesting about that, on the running of the ball side, there were also 7 different players who ran the ball. This is a team that is not afraid to share the wealth, that everybody's going to get a chance to be a playmaker here or make a play. And there is such a total team effort going on in Green Bay that I really do like. Yeah, I think from a fan perspective or Jeff fantasy football perspective, you want to see a standout guy. You want someone scoring all the points or getting all the yards. Green Bay is not playing that type of football. They are sharing the wealth, and it is working.
Alternatively, you can say that we shared the wealth on the running game and it wasn't very effective. Melton, 1 rush for 3 yards. Brooks, 1 for 1. Emmanuel Wilson, 3 for 11. Savion Williams, 1 for 3. None of that actually worked. And that goes to perhaps trying to be too cute as far as the running game is concerned and not focusing on what our strengths are, which is let's throw the ball downfield. Let's get the ball to Josh Jacobs in different ways. But going to Jeff's bugaboo of the Jeff sweep, I mean, this is something that hurt us as far as the running game. There were a lot of plays that just didn't do a whole lot that took a lot of time to develop and hurt us in that game as far as getting first downs and scoring points.
Yeah, the other counterpoint there, Neil, that I conveniently left out is yes, your second best rusher on the game is Jordan Love. 7 carries for 26 yards. 3.7 yard per average carry isn't bad. You just don't want that to be your quarterback.
And there was a point where if Love would have not slid down and gone an extra 3 yards, the game would have ended a lot more quickly because it gave Cincinnati little life at the end there to go down, kick the field goal. If he doesn't slide, if he goes that extra 3 yards, game's basically over.
Yeah, but Jordan Love was a savior throughout that entire game. If you look at our third down conversions, we were 5 of 11 on third downs. And the third downs that we made were 7, 6, 10, 1, and 8 yards. The ones that we missed were mostly short ones, 1, 5, 2, 5, 2, and 8. We averaged 6.4 yards needed for conversion on the third downs that we made. We averaged only 3.8 yards needed on the third downs that we missed. Somehow we're making the longer third downs and we're not making the shorter third downs. And all of those long third downs were due to Jordan Love. Twice Jordan Love running, twice a pass to Golden, and once a pass to Wicks. We've got to, first of all, avoid the longer third downs. Although if you look at the stats, maybe we're better off with a longer third down because that says, well, we're not going to try to run it or do something stupid on those plays. And I don't know, but this has been a theme all season that third and long has been more comfortable for us than third and short has. And we've got to figure something out as far as that's concerned.
Neil, does that play into your theory too, that the 90 or the 95-yard drives are better for this offense than getting the ball at the 30 or the 35-yard line?
There's no way that can possibly be true. Although, John, you do bring up a good point. We have maligned the asshats throughout. And yes, there were some minor asshats plays or decisions that I'm not happy with. But in that second half, the asshats were actually really critical for us as far as field position. We started out at the 34, 38, and 38 after Cincinnati's scoring drives in the second half. The asshats gave us short fields, and we scored on all 3 of those short fields in the second half.
Well, as far as the day goes, Neil, there's meet the new asshat. Same as the old ass hat, right? I still don't know the kid's name. He wore number 35 and he kicked a couple of nice field goals for us. Seems like a good kid, and he's still on the roster because Brandon McManus had his quad injury.
Lucas Haversick is the name, John.
Thanks, Neil. Lucas. Packer fans would be hard-pressed to spell that Haversick correctly at this time, wouldn't they? But we'll know he made it when there is a 35 Haversick jersey in the crowd in a couple of weeks for the Panthers game.
I had 2 complaints sort of with the assets. One is that, yes, we had 2 different penalties, one on a punt and one on a kickoff return. And then we had the 2 that we kicked in the end zone, but the 2 in the end zone, it clearly was a decision that was made by Matt LaFleur that we're not going to give them the chance. And I think that it was not as bad in this game as it was in the last game, but we've got too much chicken shit approaches from Matt LaFleur as far as just playing afraid and kicking the ball into the end zone and giving them the 35-yard line to start when they had been starting behind the 35, right? They need to score points. Let's make them have the longest field possible. And allowing them to start in the 35 just was not the best plan, in my opinion. But when that's all we're complaining about for the asshats, I think we're okay in that regard.
Yeah, and maybe we found kickoff returners because both Bo Melton and Savion Williams did really well.
They're averaging
Great
what
kickoff
they average,
returns.
like 35 yards on the
35,
returns.
36. Yeah. They had some good returns and gave us field position, set us up to succeed. And there were no damn penalties either.
Yeah.
Holding penalties, things like that. So we actually got the starting position that we deserved versus starting at the 10 or 15 or 20 yard line.
There are two things that I dislike from a decision-making perspective. The one that I thought was a killer was near the end of the first half when we got down to the Cincinnati 43-yard line and then chose to punt, right? There's a little over a minute left, and 4th and short in that circumstance is exactly when you should be going for it. You know, you're in the other side of the field. Your defense, to that point, had only allowed 21 yards for Cincinnati in the entire game. So what are you afraid of as far as if they get the ball at the 40-yard line? Who cares? But you go for it, you try to score the touchdown or at the very least a field goal, and to punt there, as we did twice in the week before, I thought was terrible. But what I liked about the decision-making is that this conservative approach, other than the kickoffs, is something that we seem to abandon in the second half. And oh my word, it was glorious when we had a lead in the fourth quarter and we kept going for trying to get another touchdown. We kept trying to score. We kept the foot on the gas, and we were not playing conservatively in that second half. We used the run and we used the pass. Both of them were effective because we were not one-dimensional. We were going for the jugular for the win rather than holding on for dear life. And I loved that absence of conservative play calling in the fourth quarter.
It was different than Cleveland because had we been conservative, we could have lost because Cincinnati kept scoring in the second half and we just frankly outscored them. That was great to see. And our offense just thrived in the second half.
There definitely was a moment there in the crowd where you see Whelan coming onto the field. And yeah, Neil, I think a lot of people are questioning why are they punting here. And then you quickly remember we have a new kicker. They're not going to try a long field goal here because that would really shorten the field for the Bengals. If you go for it and you don't make it, they get a short field at 43. But the opportunity to just drop something down there and hope that the offense makes a mistake, I think is what they were playing for there. You put them down inside the 10-yard line. Yeah, I can see because your defense is playing well, hoping to force that turnover that they need to force and getting Cincinnati to make a mistake there at the end of the first half. So punting it, I like the decision. It's just that the defense doesn't really do what you needed it to do after that. And then, yeah.
But it's the wrong decision, John. It's mathematically the wrong decision. On a 4th and relatively short in the opponent's territory, the correct decision is to go for it. You've got a better chance of winning the game because, yeah, you're not going to kick a field goal there, but your odds of getting a score on one of the subsequent plays, getting down into something real field goal range, or even possibly scoring a touchdown are significant enough that it overwhelms the small amount of field advantage that you gain by punting the ball. And yes, that ball went down to the 7-yard line, but 2 plays later, they were out to exactly where we were. So, I mean, we didn't gain that much. And one thing I will say, I was impressed by Joe Flacco and his time management. They got the ball back with 1:06 left. And they got 9 plays in that minute 6 in contrast to what the Packers have done in recent weeks when they've had limited time.
Neil, we skate by at the end of the first half there. As we mentioned earlier, it's a great 10-0 lead at halftime. Ultimately, this is a team that is in control. They're up by 14 points at one point in the second half. Jeff, you talked about the passing game and all of our receivers. We didn't talk about your tight ends, though, yet, Jeff. Tucker had 2 very important catches in this game.
The yards after the catch for the touchdown were the really fun ones to watch. He was not
after the catch.
Yes, he was not going to be denied. And that put us up by 2 touchdowns. That was a huge drive and a huge score.
Just going with a standard Wisconsin Badgers thing. Fuck them, Tucky. That was just beautiful.
And the offense does, like I said, we scored 27 points. 27 seems to be the magic number. All 3 wins with 27 points on the season. That's a neat coincidence. But a team that in the first 2 games scored 27 points and had a very on paper dominating defense. The defense, I think, overall played well, but we're just not getting those statistical numbers that we were hoping to get. The only sack in the game, Lucas Van Ness gets, and he promptly hurts his foot and he's out the rest of the game after that. Micah Parsons is making a difference. He's just not getting those stats, those numbers. This is just me talking. I think pressures is a bullshit stat. Yeah, he got there, but what happens when the quarterback gets rid of the ball? If that pass is completed, if it still goes somewhere, if it still does something, the pressure does nothing for you. You need the sack. We're not getting the sacks. we need to get home on the defense.
There are two things that Cincinnati had, though, that were important. First of all, they had Joe Flacco, a veteran quarterback who knew, despite the fact that he'd only been on the team for 4 or 5 days, he knew how to get the ball to receivers, and he clearly became more comfortable as the game was going on. But Joe Flacco is somebody who was not going to be rattled, and he was going to take what the defense was going to give him. And at first, it was a lot of dink and dunk, right? Their long drive in the third quarter was a 17-play drive. And there was very little running for the Cincinnati offense in that game. But Joe Flacco took advantage of that. But then as the defense was getting tired, as it was a clear pass situation, as he had those two dominant receivers in T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, he learned how to take advantage of those in the game. And Jamar Chase had a huge second half with 8 receptions and 80 yards and a touchdown in the second half. And Higgins and Chase, and obviously Joe Flacco hit other receivers, but those two players were dominant. And Chase just sort of like, he blew me away as far as that touchdown. It's like, wow, that is what a truly dominant wide receiver is. Jamar Chase is amazing.
He's got 2 amazing catches on the game and blanketed coverage from Keyshawn Nixon. There's no way he can play the defense any better. And Jamar Chase just makes incredible catches. And credit Flacco there. In town for 4 days, probably just happy to be out of Cleveland for the most part. But to make you guys feel old, Joe Flacco was born in January of your freshman year of high school.
We have to get a turnover. That's what was lacking here. I mean, you mentioned the sacks, but we haven't had a turnover since Flacco threw that interception, a meaningless interception, really, back then. Since then, no turnovers. Like, not even a sniff of a turnover. Not even like a fumble being recovered by the offense. There's been nothing. You'd think just luck, the law of averages, something with as many plays has gone on. There would be a bad throw, a tip, something. There have been no turnover. Right. There's been literally nothing. And so how does this defense get turnovers? And is this just the law of averages? And at some point, it's going to change.
Yeah, but you can't allow Joe Flacco to go 21 of 30 in the second half with 2 touchdowns, right? That is really good statistics in the second half. And the second half numbers, Cincinnati had 203 yards in the second half. That is not good defense no matter what. Yes, the defensive numbers were great in the first half, but this game is a 4-quarter game. And we can't just quote and say, wow, that first half looks so beautiful. We've got to look at the whole game. And that second half was terrible from a defensive perspective.
You look at those Flacco numbers, you're letting an offense put a game into 2 quarters. Those numbers just in the second half, that's a good game for some players. Flacco does that in that second half.
Fortunately, in this game, penalties didn't really sink either team, but there were a number of defensive penalties. Again, Parsons lined up offsides again. And then you had legal contact by Nixon as well.
I want to go back to the positive here. Jordan Love has really impressed me this season, and he particularly impressed me in this game. Jordan Love has ice in his veins. Like, he doesn't care. He's going to find a way to make the play, and it's really beautiful to watch him take that next level as a quarterback.
Yeah, not a lot of mistakes either. He throws the 1 interception in that opening drive, a beautiful opening drive, and then just a fluke of an interception on that tipped ball. He also only takes 1 sack on the game as well. And there are a few plays where he makes things happen with his feet. The one was it a 29-yard pass that eventually ended up being 29 yards to Jacobs on that little dump off. But it is being able to move around, being able to see the field. He's got the situational awareness, and he is starting to make things happen.
And as a result of this victory, and as a result of Kansas City beating Detroit, we finished this week in first in the NFC North, exactly where we want to be.
Again, with that anomaly of a 3-1-1 record.
Whatever, we're first in the North. That's all I care about right now.
John, you had mentioned you were at the game. So what was your take? Was the crowd as frenetic as the first couple home games? Were things a little quieter? What did you experience?
I think in the grand scheme of things, Jeff, I think the crowd was into it, but just a great buzz, I think, all around throughout the day. There was a lot of orange. I will tell you, the Cincinnati fans traveled well, and they were terrific. Remember how good of a time we had in Cincinnati? I feel that those Cincinnati fans had just as good a time in Green Bay this weekend. I feel like the crowd was into the game. We were loud. The one thing that did happen, I think it was either on the opening drive or the second drive, the crowd started a Go Pack Go chant. And LaFleur had to get people to shut up. We're on offense, you guys. Let's figure it out. It was almost like a Milwaukee crowd.
But they clearly were into the game, and that clearly was because of the pregame buzz of the tailgating. So how is tailgating on Sunday, John?
The weather is the best asset you can ask for. This was another Chamber of Commerce day for October. Beautiful day in Green Bay. It was 64 degrees at kickoff. It was mostly sunny throughout the day. People were dressed comfortably and just a buzz of activity, I think, everywhere. And we had a really good traffic flow coming through the Lot 1 tailgate party. A lot of Who Days for you, Neil. You missed all the Who Days. A lot of Bengals fans just having a great time. I feel like it was a good day for tailgating. I don't know what tailgating is like in Arizona, but it is a game that we contemplated going to for the GBC road trip. Maybe another time we'll hit the desert. I do remember a year ago, the Cardinals coming into Green Bay, and it was a rainy day. Green Bay came away victorious. We don't rest on those laurels, though, Neil. We just look at where we are now and what we can do. Green Bay going to Arizona, a team that is 2-4 on the season. Those 4 losses, losing by a combined total of 9 points. So they're not terrible, but it gives us hope, right?
Going by DVOA, yeah, you look at Arizona and they should be just a sort of middle of the road team. Overall DVOA 18th, offense 23rd, so their offense is weaker, defense 13th, special teams 16th. This just basically sounds like a completely average team. Packers 7th overall, 10th offense, second on defense. We've moved up to 24th in special teams, up 1. On the other hand, you could take Barstool's Big Cats ratings, and they are in the mega ass cheeks category at 30th. So there obviously are different opinions about this team.
We can't figure out who the starting quarterback is going to be for starters. Is it going to be Jacoby Brissett, who had a pretty good game, or is it going to be Kyler Murray?
I did watch part of that Colts-Cardinals game, and Jacoby Brissett looked pretty good moving the ball down the field. He's got that veteran savvy, although he's never been a good quarterback. He's got enough knowledge to be effective and push this Colts team to that last minute. Now, he did fail in scoring to have the opportunity to win with less than 2 minutes left, but he looked competent as a quarterback. On the other hand, their offense definitely is fairly disjointed. 22nd overall in yards, 24th in the pass, 17th in the run, 20th in points. And the big thing about their offense is that Kyler Murray, although he's at 68% completion, is only averaging 6 yards per attempt. And the team has been sacked 18 times on the season. And their top receiver is actually a tight end, Trey McBride, who's got 2 touchdowns, 347 yards. Now, Marvin Harrison Jr. is not that far behind that. But the other thing is, as far as their rushing game is concerned, that Kyler Murray actually leads the team in rushing so far this year. And when your quarterback is your leading rusher, that definitely indicates you've got issues on that side of the ball.
And your quarterback's 5'10" and like 150 pounds too. So he's not going to keep
with
running
the cleats on, Jeff. 5'10" with the cleat. It's a mobile team right now. Whether you have Murray back there or Brissett, I think you're looking at a mobile quarterback. So our defense has to be ready to contain. This is just a game, as far as I'm concerned. Again, you're looking at a 2-4 squad. Please don't be a repeat of Cleveland, where you were looking past Cleveland because Dallas was up on the schedule. Hey, we know we're going to Pittsburgh in a week. Let's not overlook the Arizona Cardinals because Pittsburgh is on the schedule next. And I think this team will be just fine.
But the big differentiator is Joe Flacco is not the quarterback. You've got fairly young or inexperienced quarterbacks. So if we can get them rattled, we need to get them rattled, get sacks, get some freaking turnovers. And
well, you know, Jeff, Cincinnati has the opportunity to do the funniest thing, because if Arizona needs a quarterback, they could offer Flacco in a trade.
Okay, but probably not.
I think they've got 2 quarterbacks. They do not have the
How many times can Joe Flacco get traded to the next Packers opponent?
I would say the biggest concern that I have, and in our preseason preview, I did pick us to lose in Arizona. I'm not picking us to lose as of this point, but is that the game is going to have a high temperature of 87 degrees, and you know that Arizona is going to do everything to make sure the Packers players suffer. We're going to be in the sun. We're going to be wearing our dark jerseys. They're going to do everything possible to make sure that we feel the heat of this day, and we've just got to make sure that we are mentally prepared for that. And I think that, for me, is the most encouraging thing, is that we've sort of been slapped around a little bit the last few weeks. We've steadied ourselves. We obviously won the game against Cincinnati, but there's not going to be a loss of focus, because I think the fact that we are in first in the North, it's like, oh, we are first again, but we've got to stay here. And I think that is going to be part of the talking points for Matt LaFleur this week.
and just to play 4 quarters of good football. This is really an opportunity. Arizona's sort of middle of the pack. This is a get right game. This has to be. Now, we talked about this last week and it didn't really work out, but Joe Flacco sort of threw a wrench in that. Okay. These quarterbacks are set to throw interceptions, they're set to throw fumbles, they're set to make dumb mistakes. We need a dumb mistake game from the other team to dominate.
Yeah, and I think looking at that Cardinals schedule, right, the first 2 games, I mean, weeks 1 and 2, you can always question how the team's prepared in the preseason and things like that. And the fact that one of those wins is the Saints.
And the
It's
other's
the Panthers
Carolina,
early.
right? So, I
Yeah.
mean, come on.
Yeah.
Are we that impressed by the 2 wins?
Well, Carolina has gotten better. Let's give them that at least. But losing by a total of 9 points in these 4 losses, point here, 2 points there. This is a team that, they make mistakes. That's why they're losing by a point or two here and there. And you need that to get those turnovers forced, Jeff. And I agree with you. That's the biggest thing this defense needs. Change those pressures to sacks and change just a lot of not near plays to big plays. Get the pick, get the fumble, do something that's going to get the offense back on the field.
And Arizona has allowed 18 sacks in the year. They are tied for 24th in sacks allowed, whereas the Packers have only allowed 9 sacks so far, 7th in the NFL. You can say what we want about the way that we have had to rotate our offensive line in the first few weeks, but the offensive line has been doing a lot of good things, and they're just getting better as they're going to get some continuity. The big statistic I have for the Packers is that right now we are first in the NFL in third down percentage. We are converting on 52% of our third downs. Now, Arizona's doing in 6th. We're getting the ball and making those conversions on third down. And I think having the offense moving does a lot as far as helping the defense is concerned. And Arizona does have strengths, but on the other hand, they do have weaknesses too. And Arizona's defense is 28th in passing yards allowed per game at 246 passing yards allowed per game. That sounds to me like Jordan Love having a huge day in the heat in Arizona.
Absolutely. I'm perfectly fine if he throws it 40 or 45 times. Let's run up the score. Let's have one of these just where it comes to the fourth quarter. We're not puckered. We're not concerned about special teams screw up. We just want to relax in the fourth quarter and then let the defense cook.
And I think the offensive line is starting to heal. They're getting back together. The interesting thing of the rotation with Jordan Morgan and Sean Ryan. So we'll look forward to see what the line is going to do. Looking at the league as a whole, through 6 weeks, there are no undefeated teams. There are only 4 teams with 1 loss. Green Bay is one of those 4 teams. The NFC North is pretty tight. With that 3-1-1 record, the Packers lead the NFC North. And then right behind them, the Lions at 4-2, and the Vikings and the Bears each at 3-2. The division is tight early, and you need all the wins you can get. And let's hope that Arizona, not being a strong team, we're able to take advantage of that coming into this Sunday.
A half game separating first and fourth in the NFC North. That is going to keep your focus. Jeff, you said that you'd be happy with us throwing 40 to 45 times. That sounds a lot like some of our big games in the past with Arizona. And I think specifically about that 2009 playoff game, which was Aaron Rodgers' playoffs debut. And I'm hoping that we have a better outcome than an overtime loss in that game. And
we seem to have a hard time winning in Arizona in the playoffs, don't we, Neil?
Well, it's 2. So we've got 2 opportunities. We haven't done it well. I will say we did play one other time, and that was my playoff debut as a fan in the strike season of 82 when we beat the Cardinals, but not the Arizona Cardinals, the St. Louis Cardinals, 41-16. And that was my initiation to playoff football. That was a glorious day at Lambeau Field. And maybe we have a resurrection of that game in the desert.
Yeah, if the Joe Flacco stat didn't make you feel old, being able to remember the Cardinals in St. Louis will make you feel old, right?
It could be worse, John. We could remember the Cardinals in Chicago, and thankfully we don't.
Or we could have been alive then.
Yeah, no, I don't think we have that going for us, do we? And the other thing I learned following the game this week, speaking of age, the social media team for the Green Bay Packers, they do a great job, but none of them are old enough to have eaten at Chili John's, which is unfortunate. Let's take a look at how we're going to wrap things up here. Jeff, final thoughts on Packers-Cardinals going into week 7.
This will be the 78th meeting between these teams. They first met November 20th, 1921, when the Cardinals were known as the Chicago Cardinals. The teams played to a 3-3 tie. Well, first of all, we already tied once this year. We're done with that. And I think this game there is going to be a lot more high scoring than 3-3. This is a Packer offense to be displayed. If Watson comes back, stretch the field, it's going to be glorious. Packers are 6.5-point favorites on the road. And I think there's going to be a lot of Packer fans at this game as well. We need a solid road win against a team that has not won since week 2, 4 straight losses. Go Pack, go.
The defense was a lot of our source of consternation for this game and really for the last 3 weeks. But our defense has performed well for large parts of the games, and it's really been when we've had obvious passing situations that it's hurt us. And certainly we're hoping that the offense performs at a level that there are going to be a lot of obvious passing situations. But the other thing that's been different for our defense in the last 3 weeks is that we have not had Devontae Wyatt. And I think his role as commanding the center of that defense is something that has been underrated, certainly by Packers fans until the last few weeks. And I'm hoping that we can get Devontae Wyatt back and seeing this defense perform at the level that it does when it's at its very best. And again, in their first 4 drives, the Cincinnati Bengals only had 21 yards against us. And if we can keep that momentum up, as we have for halves of every single game this season, make it look like we did in the first 2 weeks, this team is going to get back to that point of being dominant. I am looking forward to reaching that point. I also think that Jeff Hafley is still figuring out exactly how to use Micah Parsons, and that is part of the fun. It's not a chess game. He's not trying to set things up, but he's trying to figure out exactly what to make things work. The longer we go in the season, the better he's going to be at that. I think that we are on the cusp of having a defense that's really exciting to watch again, something that's going to be dominant, something that's going to bring us back to those 96 Packers that were dominant on both offense and defense. It may not happen this week, but it's happening soon, and I'm really excited about it. Go Pack, go.
And Wisconsinites and Packer fans definitely love the state of Arizona, whether it's visiting there or retiring there. Getting direct flights out of either Green Bay or Appleton, very few places that you can go, but Phoenix is one of them. So yes, expect the Packer fans to descend upon Phoenix. And hopefully our friend Jim, who lives out there, has a great week being a Packer fan. And this is, like I said, it's a game we looked at. It didn't work out for us. We'll talk about our road trip more next week. In the meantime, let's get ready for this Packers-Cardinals game. We don't want to overlook the Cardinals because we've got Pittsburgh coming up next week, and that's the biggest thing I hope for. Concentrate on the Cardinals. Let's get a victory on the road and get ready for the following week. All right. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit subscribe and leave a comment. Find the GBC podcast at Green Bay Chat. That is all one word, Green Bay Chat. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Blue Sky, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. On Facebook, it's modified a little bit. It's the GBC podcast - Green Bay Chat. And you can follow us on any and all of those social media platforms. And may you fully appreciate the magnitude of your impending good fortune. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Good night.